Module 2 covers what you need to know about nutrition and your approach to dieting in order to be successful with your transformation and foundation to a great physique. Nutrition is all about what we eat, but dieting is how we turn that into a lifestyle. There are some rules of nutrition we must follow, so once we understand them, we can use behavioral methods to make it easier to show up every day and succeed. Let's talk about it. Welcome into Module 2. We are jumping into Lesson 1, which is all about the intro to a successful diet. I'll cover the methods and the rules of nutrition in the later lessons, but the beginning of this module, we need to cover what is the best way to look at dieting and to look at nutrition in order to be successful. To start off this module, I need to cover 3 beliefs that sometimes hold us back. Number 1 being, diets are bad for your relationship with food. With body positivity and fat acceptance in recent years, that has helped shine a light on how much of an impact diet has on our mental health. The better way to reframe this is to not look at it as bad or good, but simply having a broader perspective on it. What gets measured gets managed. We have bad relationships with things we don't know how to manage well. This could be finances, this could be other sources of just organization in our house, our approach to school. Anything that we are disorganized with and do not take on responsibility to figure out how we can make it work for ourselves, we are likely to have a bad relationship with that thing. So being able to take a step back and realize if I put in a little bit more effort to at least be just somewhat organized or have somewhat of a structure with how we're going to diet, you are more likely to succeed. Dysfunctional belief number 2, diets only work with food that tastes bad, which is a form of punishment, and to look at diets as a way of you are acting out of guilt and shame. This is maybe effective for some, but in terms of long-term health, if we use this belief, it will set us up to just come right back to square one, and we will often regain all the weight we do on a diet with this perspective operating out of shame and guilt. The reframe of this is that food doesn't have to taste good all the time. In our society today, we live in an abundance of food. Food is more easily accessible than ever before. But when we can look at food in a way that says food doesn't have to taste good all the time, we can start to follow the laws of nutrition to actually take care of our health and to meet those basic rules every day, but still make room to have food that does taste good, which I'll cover in later lessons. And last belief to cover is that diets are hard and they work when you work harder, which is kind of a short-term view. And same thing with the idea of 6 workouts per week versus 3 workouts per week. We need to optimize for the long term and figure out what is something we can stick to and be consistent with over the long term, rather than just working as hard as possible in the short term, getting burnt out, and then reverting back to square one, square zero before we even started the diet. In reality, diets are hard, and success comes when you make the work easier to do. Instead of working harder, let's try and figure out a way to make the work easier to do, so that way we can establish a new standard for ourselves and always hit the bare minimum every day. And when we can do that, that is how we will create success in the long term. So connecting this back to point B, if we want to build a strong physique, and the main goals of that are going to be building muscle and losing excess body fat, we need to know that we need to train in the gym hard to give our body a reason to grow. But beyond that, we still need to prioritize a few rules in nutrition in order to make that possible, to make that growth happen. To lose fat, it's same thing. Same thing comes down to with our nutrition. There are a few rules we need to do. So to change our body composition, the number 1 priority to get stronger and build muscle, we need to have a consistent amount of protein in our diet. Rule number 2 is that we need to eat enough calories to build our body. And then lastly, rule number 3, we need to eat a calorie deficit to lose excess body fat. We don't need to be in a calorie deficit every day of every year, but we can figure out different periods to make a little bit of progress that we can get down to a point in which we are feeling comfortable, we have a strong physique, and we can nail the fundamentals every day in a way that we feel good about doing so. Touching back to that first dysfunctional belief, in order to know where we are going, we must first know where we are. So a calorie is simply a measurement of energy. And so when we look at different foods, all foods have a certain amount of energy in them. But beyond that, it is more important to have a broader perspective. And so with the idea of calories, if cardio is not just about burning calories, if our diet is not just about calories, we need to reframe this to get away from the idea of crash dieting Crash dieting pretty much says, what is the least amount of calories I can eat to make the most amount of progress as fast as possible? That sets us up to be unsuccessful over the long term. We may see some short progress, but it will make us only revert back to square one later down the road. And so the better way to look at this with calories is, what is the most calories I can eat while still losing body fat? And along the way, we also need to think about, how can I add to my diet and provide for myself and my own body's needs, rather than taking away and punishing or acting out of that shame and guilt? We can have treats in our diet and still be successful. You can eat a bar of dark chocolate or an ice cream bar every day and still be successful. And I'll tell you how to do that in the later lessons. So with these two thoughts, here's the last three questions we need to know in order to actually make progress towards point B. 1, how many calories do I currently eat? Number 2, how much protein do I currently eat? And lastly, do I have any structure or routine with food already? If we can think about these three questions, then we can start to change them, and we can start to change them for the better to follow the rules of nutrition and also some lifestyle behaviors to create success for the long term. Connecting this back to the hero's journey, I want to remind you at the end of this lesson that this module is going to not just give you more and more information about all the science and the nitty-gritty details of nutrition and diets, but I want to focus in on the beliefs you need to have in order to have transformation with your physique. So what to expect next, I will cover why all diets work the same. And once we understand that, we can understand how to apply that to our own needs and our own preferences to still be successful. Next, I will cover how to make calorie deficits easier in order to lose fat without punishment or kind of acting out of that, oh, I need to take away things from my diet. I need to limit myself in my diet. We can still be successful and enjoy our diet at the same time. I'll then also cover 3 ways to make dieting seamless with your lifestyle in order to kind of blend up different experience levels, whether you're new to dieting, whether you have a lot of experience with dieting already. And lastly, one of the most important lessons within our nutrition and diet is to find balance and to create results that last. And we pretty much do this by mastering one thing, which I will cover in that future lesson. But again, with your diet is probably one of the hardest things about your transformation, because there's going to be so many small daily challenges and temptations. So do not downplay them. Just because it's a small challenge or a small temptation, when you experience that every day, that's actually a significant portion of your life. So trying to think about our diet in the most balanced way possible that gives us the most sense of control and the most sense of autonomy will help us get over these challenges of temptation and help us get beyond behaviors that end up in self-sabotaging or giving up altogether. There will be times in which it is really hard, but dieting is about being able to show up every day, and figuring out a way to make that easier is where transformation lies. And I'll finish up this intro by saying that one person's successful diet may be different for another person's. However, figuring out different ways to be successful and to overcome those challenges and temptations could be valuable lessons to share with other people. Your story could then become a part of someone else's, and that is exactly what the hero's journey is all about. Your transformation is not just about you, but choose to do it every single day, and you will create success for yourself and others. I hope you are excited to create success with your nutrition and dieting, so you'll catch me in lesson 2 covering how all diets work the same.